Welcome to a new episode of our show, What People Think, in which today 4 phenomenal people have gathered to discuss the issue of work time reduction, an innovative idea to change our working culture for the better. Today we hear the voices of the brilliant Spencer Degrowth, a proponent of this new framework, as well as our marvelous Miss Patricia Hilton Koch, a representative business economist from Multinational United. The tremendous Carla Demos, an activist, scholar and farmer, as well as a prominent labor unionist, Eve Ivy. Tell us about work time reduction.
Today, we are facing the continuous problem of unemployment, unfair working conditions, and global ecological crisis. There are many ideas to tackle these issues, and one proposal is to reduce the current model of the 5-day work week to a 4-day work week. While wages overall would stay the same, we would all have an extra day off. Reduced pressures on the environment and new models of work sharing could create more jobs without even having to grow the economy.
The need for a reduction in working hours is unquestionable. The current 40 hours framework is outdated, unproductive and unsustainable, both in terms of people's well-being and in terms of the environment. But the 4-day week is not the only way forward. There's other models for work time reductions, such as the 6-hour day, which would be much better for working class families. Currently, societies just aren't structured to be able to have a family and work at the same time. The long hours plus commuting, which can sometimes add up to 2 hours to people's day, just means that people are exhausted, parents don't have enough time to spend with their children, and they have to use childcare, which often people can't afford and it's not provided by the state. So, we need to make work compatible with family life. In fact, a recent trial that implemented the 6-hour workday in Sweden resulted in higher job satisfaction, higher well-being for employees, as well as higher productivity and higher customer satisfaction. We need a strategy for reducing working hours that works for everyone in society, and that might not necessarily be the 4-day week.
I have a lot of experience managing successful businesses, and I can tell you that companies could just move somewhere else and take away the jobs from the country, or even go bankrupt due to the high costs of labor. I also have an example from Sweden, since you mentioned. Take the Swedish healthcare, for example. In 2015, the city of Gothenburg decided to implement a 6-hour workday. And they had to hire more nurses to cover the hours that they lost because of that. You know how much it costed to the city? $1.3 million. Of course, it was considered completely absurd to invest taxpayers' money into something that is economically unsustainable. So they decided to completely cancel it by 2017. And if you ask the councillor himself, he said he wouldn't do it again because it was too expensive. Taxpayer money should be invested in growing the economy to promote innovation and new enterprises. This way, creating more jobs. We don't need to work less, we need more jobs and economic growth.
What do you mean we need to grow when growth is what causes excessive exploitation of nature and humans, leading to the increase of social injustices and ecological collapse? And why are we only taking examples of Sweden, which is a high-income country? The work time reduction sounds like a nice idea. Fair enough. But do you really think that's enough to tackle the crises and inequalities that we are facing globally? For example, who really ensures that companies are really paying the same salaries as before, especially if, as you said, Ms. Hilton Koch, it is too expensive for them? And then this could force people to take a second job, and here we go again.
Of course, this would have to come with other complementary policies and strategies to ensure the well-being of the population and avoid exploitation of workers. For example, governments could subsidise the cost to businesses through a transition phase of moving to a shorter working week, as the Spanish government is currently proposing at the moment. No one is saying that this policy alone will solve all of the problems that society is currently facing, but it's a necessary step.
Yes, but also there needs to be a bigger systemic and paradigm shift towards a socio-ecological transformation. Let's look at this globally. We are talking here about Sweden and Spain, high-income countries, who can afford such experiments. But what about lower income or impoverished countries? How should they sustain themselves through such a process? the reduction of working hours is really not enough to solve problems of global well-being and the climate crisis.
How could a reduction in working hours affect our well-being?
Okay, talking about well-being. With the Friday off, people have more time and longer weekends and can dedicate time to fulfilling activities, their families or their neighborhood community. All the studies on the 4-day work week that have been conducted until now show an increase in mental health and well-being because people started to dedicate time to meaningful activities and parents can spend more time with their children. Working less translates into less stress and more personal and collective fulfillment.
What really affects people's well-being is having money to buy food, to pay the rent, and to meet their needs. We are in the middle of a crisis. We need more jobs. People need jobs to have security and well-being.
Mrs. Hilton Koch, with all due respect, research shows that over a certain baseline, increased wealth doesn't actually mean increased well-being. In developed countries, such as the UK and the US, people work long hours and produce a lot of wealth, but anxiety and depression and other mental health problems have been on the rise for years. Also, as we've mentioned, the proposal wouldn't actually include a reduction in wages. The idea is that people will be just as productive as they are now, so they'd earn the same, but just do it in compressed hours. Trials in shortening working hours across the globe show that people's well-being increased hugely as they were able to balance personal, family, and work life.
Indeed, stress has destructive health impacts such as depression. So we are currently creating an ill and traumatized society working on coffee and antidepressants. I wonder which industries benefit from this. In fact, I'm worried that the work hour reduction cannot even go in the right direction if we don't have a bigger change happening. And if it is still embedded in a paradigm of productivity. Will people just get more stressed because they have to work more in less hours? And if we look at it from the gender lens, how is the well-being of women ensured?
Obviously, one policy alone cannot change structural issues such as gender inequalities. A broader change in gender roles is obviously needed. But providing families with a Fridays off means that in theory there's more time for taking care of kids, doing household chores, and this can be equally distributed. The ever-present role of the male breadwinner that until today deprives many children of a caring fatherly presence would be challenged, as much as it would allow mothers to combine work and family time. The 4-day work week is a great opportunity to change structural routines and make people become aware of these issues so we can further work on such gender inequalities.
So it seems that work time reduction could have a positive impact on the well-being of people in countries that can afford it. But what about the ecological crisis and its impacts on justice?
What impact could work time reduction have on global climate justice?
We can no longer deny that economic growth causes increased destruction of the Earth's resources and ecosystems. Therefore, the current climate and environmental catastrophes require degrowing the economy, but without causing a socially catastrophic recession. A work time reduction, in whichever form it takes, is the only way to ensure continued high employment in a degrowth context. Otherwise, we'd have a social crisis and spiralling unemployment. If working hours are reduced, there's more capacity for work sharing and creating new jobs, maintaining healthy employment levels and looking after workers in a context of degrowth.
Degrowing the economy? Are you crazy? Honestly, historically, decrease in GDP has been catastrophic. We all know that. And you people have no idea how businesses work. Because do you really think that companies will want to hire more people to work for less time? They would just hire immigrants that would work for longer with horrible working conditions. Is that what you call global climate justice? What we really need is green growth so that we can support companies, we can invest in sustainable innovation and create more jobs. It's better for the environment, it's better for the workers and for the economy. We need growth.
Green growth is a euphemism. The real utopia here is to believe that economic growth can solve our problems. It is the other way around. The growth imperative creates social and environmental problems in the first place. But still, Patricia, you raised the point of concern. The issue of emerging and injustices such as precarious work migration needs to be taken into consideration. As Eve has already mentioned, one policy alone is not the solution. But as you said, it might even trigger problems elsewhere. I propose a broader reformation of labor in general, a policy package, so to say, that takes your issue into consideration as well. But the 4-day work week is a key policy to start with. In terms of the environment, 4-day work week will reduce production output and resource use and also saves 1 day of commuting from and back to work. Friday could be, so to say, a day for transformation, where people can engage in activities related to climate justice issues. More free time and leisure incites human creativity, breeds innovation and political engagement, and enables people to build a more sustainable and just society.
Well, that would be beautiful, but do you really think that people will be gardening and hugging for 3 days a week and become revolutionaries overnight? They will just have more time to go shopping. And don't you think they will take the opportunity to take a mini holiday and fly around? I'm pretty sure that, for example, flying companies would take advantage of this and promote Thursday night flights, for example. Look, reduced working hours is obviously necessary and good. But we can't just trust on this one policy. We need more policies to protect the environment, such as, in this case, for example, high taxes on flights. And we need more incentives for a social, cultural, and economic change towards real and integrated degrowth.
Thank you for listening.
This show was sponsored by Brian Air, your provider of comfortable, cheap, and luxurious flights whenever and wherever you want. Thursday night, 3 days off, don't know what to do? We can give you what you need. Book your last-minute flights now to the next beautiful warm island. Free spots for your children and almost free spots for you. Is that good enough now, Patricia? I hate my job.